This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's a lot more to it that I don't report on, but a lot of it I don't find interesting. To start off, some sad news. Superstar Billy Graham, who has a GoFundMe going under Billy Graham, 79, is back on kidney dialysis and has acute renal failure and inflammation in the lung. He also has diabetes, cancer, tons of health issues that you could help him out with on his GoFundMe. I wish that some of the people that took elements of his gimmick would support him more, but it's just the way life is. Vince McMahon was back at the WWE tapings March 4th in Boston. WWE, as I've already talked about, is looking to work with DraftKings and legalizing gambling in at least 3 states, which would change a lot of things as far as letting talent know what their futures will hold and what all the writers will know, because there's like 30 or 40 writers. And obviously, if the money gets big on these bets and information leaks out, or these writers decide to use the information they have, it could be very complicated. WWE is in negotiations with the government of Western Australia about putting on a massive stadium show. Gable Stevenson, who's been under contract with WWE for a while, hasn't been used much. Doesn't have the presence of a Brock Lesnar, even though he was a more successful amateur wrestler than Lesnar. He's apparently thinking of going back to amateur wrestling. Wells Fargo Security is predicting that Fox is not going to renew SmackDown, as apparently they're overpaying for it right now. It's listed at $183 million as far as the real value per year, and Fox is already paying $205 million for it. So a good amount more, over $20 million more a year than its value. That adds up. Sarai, who is Sari Fujinami, 26 years old, hasn't wrestled for WWE since August 2nd, has had her contract expired and is going back to Japan. Dynamite did a 0.29 rating from Sacramento this week, 5,400 paid in attendance. NXT did a 0.17 rating. Raw did a 0.52 rating from Boston with John Cena on the show, 12,500 paid. Rampage last week from San Francisco did a 0.10 in front of about 2,800 paid. SmackDown from Washington last Friday had around 12,000 paid. MLW did not post a rating for their Reels show. They're still trying to sue WWE, even though their shows get 0 to no interest. And in my opinion, they'd be better off using all this money for lawsuits. Their last lawsuit got thrown out. Hire some better talent, because lawsuits are expensive and money draining. And it's not WWE's fault that nobody gives a shit about your product. AEW Revolution from San Francisco drew around 9,000 total with 8,000 paid, so about 1,000 comps. Meltzer says that was far from a sellout, but a good crowd for AEW. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega's contract expire this year. And apparently both are going to explore all options. Omega hasn't wrestled a lot of the WWE wrestlers, and Meltzer thinks he would get a major push there. He's been pushed a lot in AEW, and he hasn't lived up to expectations yet of being the next Ric Flair. He's a good talent, don't get me wrong, but could he be a top wrestler? Who knows? I mean, anyone that they want to be a top wrestler, actually, they can make a top wrestler. So good luck to him. Of course, AEW is in Winnipeg next week. First time Omega and Jericho and Callis have been in Winnipeg for Dynamite. They did have 50% off tickets, I think, a few weeks ago, and they're now over 7,000 pre-sale. You'd think Jericho would have had an instant sellout there, but for some reason, no. Meltzer points out that AEW keeps doing angles where talent is burying AEW, and he doesn't understand why they're doing this because it doesn't make the company look good. The most recent one is the angle with Eddie Kingston leaving AEW and burying it to go to Ring of Honor. But the thing is, everybody knows Ring of Honor is owned by the same guy, and they use a lot of the same people on the show. So how can you like act like it's a different company when in reality it's mostly the same people? I mean, Chris Jericho was just champion of Ring of Honor. He's AEW as you get. UFC says Francis Ngannou will never be back. I think he made a big mistake not taking that John Jones fight. Tom, Freddie Prinze Jr. was a writer. I don't think he might still be a Hollywood writer, but I don't know what he does now other than a podcast. What about agrees that, like, how do you, like, the AEW fans for the most part are smart marks that all know it's the same owner. So how can Ring of Honor be that much of a different locker room when it's pretty much the same people? With maybe a couple exceptions. I don't think they use MJF in Ring of Honor much, but it's mostly the same people, and they have Ring of Honor matches in AEW. So how can you act like it's a different locker room? Yeah, I'm quitting WCW Saturday night to go to WCW main event. It's a weird angle, and as Meltzer points out, you have like a real thing with like the FTR who are sitting at home being paid, I guess now, or at least one of them is. And they got so many people sitting at home being paid, complaining about AEW and the whole thing with CM Punk, and then they're doing an angle about how shitty the backstage environment is. I don't know. It's weird. And they still haven't released this video game. Someone says they brought back ECW. The other thing is, Ring of Honor, they recently did tapings in front of like 100 people in Orlando. Why would anyone want to go from AEW, which regularly gets crowds from 3,000 to 5,000, to wrestling in front of a few hundred in Ring of Honor? And Ring of Honor as a brand is only running shows here and there. So let me quit the big company to wrestle for a small company. That just doesn't make any sense. Tom says Mark Briscoe has huge momentum. Well, yeah, sadly, that whole tragedy has given him a lot of momentum, and that's just a horrible tragedy. Yeah, they don't know why. There's no real reason why this game that they've been talking about for so long hasn't been released yet. The last I heard about it is they were taking CM, even though they're paying CM Punk $3 million a year and he's recognizable, they were taking him off the cover. So why pay a guy if you're not even going to use his likeness? I don't know. John wants to see WWE sign the Young Bucks. They'll go wherever they can make the most money, I'm sure. I'm positive of that. Well, I wish everyone a great Friday. I'm out of here, heading to the gym.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe